Are you able to see the presentation?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Is it in a slideshow mode?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so thanks. Okay, so it's a pleasure to be here and witness this energy virtually. Thank you to the Recon Committee, who is doing a standout job on managing and organizing this event. Thank you also to all the presenters and students and colleagues for being here. And last but not least, thanks Professor Srivastava for inviting me to speak on a topic which is so crucial and we in higher education across the globe are grappling with. So when I think of university and the pandemic that we've been hit by, I'm wondering, how do we reimagine what the higher education is going to look like?
Sorry to interrupt, sir. We cannot see your PowerPoint presentation. We are only seeing your window of your laptop.
We're actually seeing your screen. Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh, okay. No, that's
So
okay.
you may have to stop screen share and reshare.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. This is what happens when you have multiple screens. How is that? Is that better? Is that better?
Yes, sir.
Is that Yep. Okay. All right. So when I think about universities, I was thinking what comes to my mind. Two words, two things that come to my mind. One is a knowledge, and second is a place, buildings, heritage, history, and putting them together, it becomes a place for gaining education. But is it really only a place for gaining education? Universities are a lot more than that. Universities are a place. Something stuck here again. Okay. My PowerPoint has just crashed. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Are you able to see this now?
Yeah, we can see that.
Okay, so what's a university? It is more than a place for gaining knowledge education. It's the place to go, you know. In a student life, you wake up in the morning, where do you go? It's the first place to think about to go. It's a place to meet our kinds. It's a place where we meet, you know, fellow students and meet our kinds. It's a place to stay fit and play. It's a place to reflect. It's a place to meet new friends. And it's a place to make partners, whether that is business partners or future or life partners for some. So this is what the university is. And this has all been taken away from us right now because of the COVID-19, especially with the number of cases in India and what's happening in India. It's terrible to see and hear. And what has happened is we've gone from all of these and we've landed here. In front of our screens, we're looking at our screens all day, most of the time studying, working, and doing everything just on our screens. So then the question is, you know, is this the right model? Are we ever going to come out of this? So where we have landed is in our cocoons, where we are facing screens most of the days. But studying from home it's not all doom and gloom. It comes with a lot of advantages too, like flexibility, saving on money and saving on time on commute, and being in your pajamas. So gaining knowledge online is possible, in my opinion. You can study online and it can continue to happen, but it is not a sustainable model if you are going to make university life and a space where you can do all those other things, develop your personality, develop your skills, meet friends, make networks, and develop yourself as a more matured and grown human being. So then the question begs is, where to next? What is going to happen now that we are already here? So historically, if you see, universities have adapted and survived, global wars, genocides, and periods of political strifes and ideological discord. So the short answer is we will come out of this. We will come out of this stronger, but things will not look the same. So it's no-brainer that most of the universities will never go back to the pre-COVID normal. Because while the pandemic has wreaked a havoc, there is, I think, a silver lining in what it has made us do. It has made us rethink, create, innovate on how we do things in different areas of lives. So for higher education, the pandemic has pushed us against the wall to not only think creatively, but to act creatively and immediately on a very short time, on a sudden notice. And having said that, many of us who have been at the higher education for a very long time sort of knew that the universities will need to transform with Coursera coming up, MOOCs coming up, with LinkedIn Learning coming up, with so much online resources available. One can basically study any course just sitting online without getting a degree. So that transformation had to happen. So in a way, this has pushed us to make that happen now. So this pandemic is an inflection point from where we go to where we are today to where we want to reach. Because look, until the beginning of this outbreak of pandemic, online offerings from the universities were sort of supplementary. They were marketed as supplementary things that the university did in addition to their core face-to-face offering. That's going to change. And what we are experiencing now is that this idea of pursuing online education as an alternate to contact education. But nor online education is an antidote of the sector's resources challenges. Neither face-to-face education is the only way to go. So what we are looking at in the where to part, what we are looking at is a blended mode, is a hybrid mode, which most of the universities have started working upon. In Australia, there are hardly any cases now. So things have gone back to normal. We are back on campus, but there is still an online hybrid mode in which we are studying. So when I was thinking about what are the things that, from 2 points that I started off the presentation with, which is knowledge and place, what are the big shifts that we will see in these 2 areas, that is knowledge and place? So from the knowledge point of view, we see one of the first is the sage on the stage sort of approach that education has taken for many years, where a lecturer comes and is responsible for the transmission of the knowledge to the students by doing their own research or reading textbooks and things like that. So the lecturer essentially becomes a sage on the stage that people come and listen to. This will have to change because students can get all this information online. You talk to students, and while you're talking to them in the class, they're already Googling what you're saying is right or not, or they're trying to find out what else is happening. So that transmission job needs to be done away with. And lecturers need to see themselves more as agent of change in terms of skill development, critical thinking, creativity and innovation, entrepreneurship, those solid, bold areas of education that needs a experienced mentor. We will need to be historical. We can't get out of the history. So universities are old identities. The university that I work for recently celebrated 150 years anniversary. So older institutes, they have a lot of history. We can't throw them out. And in fact, they are the reasons why we continue to survive. But we need to be more contemporary in our approach in terms of what we teach, how we teach it, and are we developing skills or are we just transmitting knowledge? So we need to be historical, but also contemporary. There also needs to be a discussion about value add. So justifying the fees that we are asking students to pay when we are not delivering the entire program on face-to-face. So if the program is going to be face-to-face and online, the value add has to come from somewhere where students see the value of investing that much money into the education that they've chosen. We also have to start thinking about our assessments, how we do the assessments. So in our university, we tried looking at different options such as oral examination, something that we used to do back in India in the schools. I remember in my primary education, I'd get a teacher come get me to stand up next to them and ask me questions. So we've started doing this online. So we've done oral examinations online. We also got students to do media submissions like, recorded videos, podcasts, and audio presentations. And what we also had was a released exam. So that was done on the learning management system. We use Moodle, some universities use Blackboard, some use Canvas. Depending on what learning management system you use, you can do a released exam on the assessment. So assessments will need to be reevaluated. And what will need to further be reevaluated is, are we testing the memory? Are we testing what is being taught, or are we testing its application? So that has to also be re-looked at. What also will needed to be re-looked at is the offerings. Traditionally, the universities have offered undergrad, postgrad, doctoral programs, but there is a huge need and a gap in the market where people are looking just to get one qualification, one certification. Say for example, basics of digital marketing, basics of social media marketing. So these sort of non-credentialized short courses could also be looked at in terms of the offerings. And the last thing, which it's a bit ambitious that I put this here, but universities are a long way away from looking at students as customers. And it's high time we start looking at university students as our customers and consumers, because once you start looking at them from that point of view, you start realizing what value are you providing, what experience are you providing. So what I put here is SX to CX, which is student experience to consumer experience. And we have to draw a parallel in that, where we provide that value that students can see that their time and money is being well spent. So this is on the knowledge side, how things around the knowledge side will change. From the place side, one of the things that will need to change is the campus design. So buildings are, the buildings are symbols, they are landmarks, especially university buildings. If you look at, some prestigious universities like Harvard, Yale, Cambridge, or in India, you look at IIMs, the campuses are massive, and there is a symbolic attraction to it. But this will have to change, because in the future, for higher learning facilities, the shapes and the space of the physical area will be very important. So we in Australia, we foresee that, even post-COVID, we will have to maintain social distance. So that will need to be taken into account. Providing places which are flexible, furniture flexible in terms of, collapsible furniture, collapsible rooms, will need to be designed so that it's a multi-purpose room instead of these large lecture theaters, which are too rigid and too hard to move. We're also seeing that strategically positioned microphones, which will enhance acoustics by picking up voices from students in different corners of the class, and perhaps cameras that pan the same way. Will be the future of classrooms, because if you have a hybrid mode, there will be some students online, some students in face-to-face mode. So the technology will play a very, very important role in that. So future classrooms could also have a bit more hands-free technology, like touchless lighting, touchless or motion censored activated doors, or voice activated elevators and things like that, reducing the touch points. So that becomes as a natural segue in the technology space. Notepads and pens will continue to be there, but collaborative softwares that allow students to work online will also be very, very important and popular. Technology is going to be the backbone of the university as opposed to the buildings. So traditionally, buildings, facilities, gym and swimming pools and tennis courts and large lecture theaters, all of these have been a selling point for the university. but now it's going to be technology that is going to be the backbone. And we will need technology that offers real experience, that is affordable, that is seamless, and that learning management systems like LMSs, they'll need to focus more on user experience and need to be more smart in terms of their graphic user interface and more intuitive and not clunky. Live caption lectures is one of the other things we see that might happen, because students living in remote areas, students who are always on the go, traveling in public transport, may not be able to watch the video or listen to the video. But if they are live captioned with subtitles, then they can get the content of the lecture. We're also thinking, this is something that our Vice Chancellor has recently spoken about, which is campus for community. So we have these large spaces, massive campuses, which are not being used to their capacity at the moment. So using that space for the community to engage, to interact, to come together, to hold events, hold political discourses, hold conferences. So the universities will need to open up their spaces more to the community, so that the community can come together. And physical and mental health, physical and mental well-being. This is one of the most important things that has come out in our experience here in Australia, that students have had to go through a lot to study online. And so did the lecturers who were, huddled to us to put recorded lectures, live lectures, and everything together. There has been a lot of mental worry in this. So the pandemic has sort of made us realize that sudden changes that we are not prepared for can actually put people into a very, very vulnerable spots. So universities will need to create programs and spaces to address this as a priority, where staff and students can go to recharge mentally and physically. So mental and physical well-being will be very critical to look at. And timetables. So we have sort of recently asked ourselves a question that, do we need timetables like we used to need them? Given that, if the commute is not a question, then we can always do online lectures or online activities after work hours, which allows students to work and learn at the same time. Do we need slotted 3 hours lectures or 1 hour lecture, 2 hours tutorial? So we are all thinking this model where the timetable can be really be flexible and be compatible to what the needs are currently. And universities are traditionally known to be very rigid because of the sector that they are funded by the government, funded by people and by students. That bureaucratic beast, which is very slow to move, will need to be more agile and more flexible in the future. And I think I'll leave you with the last note for today, a short story. There was a university building that was being built, and the landscape artist came to the sponsor of the university and asked them where did they want to make the walkways to go from the entrance of the university to the building. And the person at the university said, don't worry about that right now, don't design anything. Students will find and staff will find the quickest and the efficient, the most shortest way to walk there, and then we'll create the pathway. So what I'm trying to tell you is that we as people have a tendency to find a path of least resistance, which can be very positive thing in a time like this. So we will find our way. Things might look a bit gloomy at the moment, but be rest assured that the higher education sector is although slow but transforming. So I think I'll leave you this with my last line here, that the pandemic has shown us, has given us an opportunity to rethink higher education, and there is no time better for re-examining the idea in future education than now. So thank you very much for your time. I'm happy to take any questions, but before I do that, we will open this up to the panel first. So I've got Dr. Swahini Salih and I've got Dr. Kashin here, who are my fellow panel members. Would one of you like to take this forward and present your thoughts on this?
Thank you, sir, for insightful information on how we need to rethink and readjust our ways of learning in the future to come, using technology for education field in COVID situation, and also shedding the light on physical and mental well-being. Now, I would like to introduce our second panelist, Dr. Alexander Yashin.
Sorry, I have a question from the audience. Can I place it now or do I at the end of the?
Let's put the questions at the end after all the three panel members have spoken, because there's a chance that the question might be answered by one of the panel members already before it's being asked.
Thank you, sir. I'll do that.
So our second panelist is Dr. Alexander Yashin. Sir is the Deputy Director for Academic Affairs at Ural Federal University, School of Public Administration and Entrepreneurship. He is an author and lecturer of number of courses in engineering and environment, as well as economics and management. Sir is also author of more than 70 scientific publications, 5 monographs in Russian, and 2 monographs in English. In 2004, he received the British National Green Apple Award. We welcome you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. And first of all, I would like to thank you, the conference organizers and Professor Srivastava personally, to invite me and give me this unique opportunity to present our vision of post-corona education. So I will try to load my presentation and I will start them. Okay. Yes. Okay. No. Sorry. I will try again.
You can share your screen, sir.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess you can see my
Yes,
presentation.
it's visible.
Good, good. So all Russian universities, as all universities in the world, are passing through this very challenging period connected with the coronavirus, and I would like to share some ideas how do it, and about the international and national response on these challenges connected with the pandemic. So yes, as we can see, in general, on the international level and on the national level, all universities in the sphere of higher education and the higher education sector, the pandemic has affected on all features of the higher education, like internationalization, like scientific researches in universities, in legal system connected with the acting of university and universities management and financing, of course. As we can see on this slide, according to the data from International Association of Universities, in last year, 24% of world universities canceled the education process. 46% of world universities decreasing number of applicants enrollee. 52% of world universities delay their researchers. 59% of world universities lost their partnerships. And 84% of world universities decreased the academic mobility. And yes, and couple of words about the challenges for universities. All edges of universities, activities of universities' life was affected by coronavirus. Economic life of the universities, and reduction in funding due to the crisis, which will affect all aspects of universities' activities. Communication issues like communication with foreign and domestic and foreign students and applicants. For example, for my university, the Ural Federal University in Yekaterinburg, Russia, our university is one of the biggest university in Russia. We have 36,000 full-time students, both in undergraduate and graduate programs. And it was the very serious challenge for our university in the beginning of Corona period, how to communicate with our foreign students, because as far as you know, Russia closed the borders and foreign students had no opportunities to enter to the country, to enter to the Russia for a study. In internationalization, the pandemic has made significant adjustments to the plans of potential international students to study abroad. And universities are developing strategies for how to attract the potential foreign students, how to develop the strategies for virtual mobility, how to prepare the teachers for working with foreign students in remote remote mode, in digital environment, using some platforms for virtual mobility. Issue of partnerships. Many universities have moved their partnership to the online format. Many have begun to search for new forms of interaction in the digital environment. Problems with staff, problems with university staff, both for academic staff and administrative staff. From the one hand, the universities have shortage of staff to organize online education, and from the other hand, they are forced to cut non-academic staff and part-time teachers in order to save financial resources, because, of course, the rethinking and rearranging of all university processes is very, very expensive. It's very, very expensive history now. Research. Universities have to reduce their funding sources for research and scientific research, for example, and publication due to the corona crisis. And of course, the management issues, the issues of university management. In addition to purely technical and regulatory restrictions, significant problems arose with the organization of effective communication from the point of view of managing a large team, assessing the intensification of and sufficient efficiency of employees' work, terms of remuneration, and making adequate management decisions. At the same time, expanding the possibilities of open education, referring the education resources of other universities and comparing the level of their informativeness and relevance, create a challenge for universities to increase competition for students. And very important issue, the issue of online or hybrid education processes. Because the large number of guides, trainings for teachers on the organization of online learning and the use of digital tools, there is the decrease of the quality of teaching. We found the decrease of the quality of teaching during the period of pandemic education. Decrease the quality of teaching and the unwillingness of a significant proportion of teachers to use the possibilities of this form of education. Students, they have stress due to the fact that there is no possibility of personal communication with teachers, fundamental change of the learning process which they expected upon admission. The quality and quantity of educational resources required to study courses online is insufficient, especially during the first part of pandemic. Infrastructure of many universities, including the Russian universities, currently does not have enough capacity to organize online learning because this is the issue of great financial support. For example, to buy special equipment, for example. And of course, the psychological stress of students and teachers due to transfer of many educational and administrative processes to the online mode. So, and in the last part of my short presentation, I'd like to share some ideas about the Russian experience and how to organize the effective process of in higher education during the pandemic. This 12 months is from last April to this April, and the fact is all Russian universities were closed and shifted to online education in the I remind just the date. It was 27th of March last year. 27th of March, President Putin signed the special law about transferring Russian universities to the online format. 27th of March last year. We have some experience, and I would like to share this experience. First of all, the Russian university, the rapid transition of one of the most massive systems of higher education in the world, I mean the Russian universities, because we have 450 universities in the country, and I mean the state universities. And all state universities, 450 universities in Russia, was shifted to the online format of education in 2 weeks, from 27th of March last year. Russian universities organized the number of special measures to protect employees. Over 65 years old from possible harms and possible infection. involvement of leading universities in development of regulatory documents. All leading universities and my universities, of course, took part with the Ministry of Education in the development of a number of regulatory documents for the whole system of Russian universities, how to work in the pandemic period. And of course, the great attention from the first day of the pandemic, of job loss for students, and all Russian state universities stimulated the new possibilities for employment of students at universities. For example, in my university, we hired hundreds of students, be teaching assistants and assistants in our scientific departments. So a couple of final words about the Russian higher educational system. How generally the Russian higher education system coped with the stress test, and became obvious the need to develop and implement a new model of the educational process, which can be called a hybrid process. The pandemic has shown excessive rigidity and inflexibility of the current educational system in Russian universities. Existing infrastructural capabilities, digital resources and tools, methodological solutions are not enough to make the development in Russian universities are not enough to make the development of digital technologies and distance format effective and convenient for the students and teachers. And the new situation has shown a demand for a significant transformation of higher education management. And this is the main feature of the Russian universities now, how to transform the system of Russian higher education to be more flexible and to work in the hybrid format. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, sir, for such insightful information on internationalization of universities, also challenges faced by universities and how they overcame on these challenges in COVID situation. Now, I would like to introduce our third panelist, Dr. Kirti Soniseli. Ma'am is the Professor of Business Administration at the Academic Senate of the California State University. She serves as an elected statewide senator, representing around 30,000 faculty and 5 lakh students of 23 universities in the California State University. Also, ma'am is the co-author of several management books. Some of them are Marketing Management, Cross-Cultural Collaboration and Leadership in Modern Organization, and also Marketing Communication for Local Non-Profit Organizations, Targets and Tools. Last but not the least, our chest swells with pride to tell everyone that ma'am is an alumna of CINSRI from 1985 batch. We welcome you, ma'am. Over to you. Ma'am, you are on mute.
So we're going to try an interesting little experiment here. I have sound on one machine and I'm operating my slides on another. So can you see my slides? Or my slide?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you. So first I'd like to thank Professor, both my predecessors for their wonderful talks and say that we have many similarities in the California State University system and across the United States. So as I open, I'd like to share one of my favorite characters, Winnie the Pooh and Piglet, and talk about a young man who came to class to this conference yesterday with COVID and presented in one of the sessions and said, I'm sorry if I lose my voice or if I drop off. And then he stayed the entire time. Of course, he only had to speak for his session, but I'm assuming he was listening and participating. And so with that, I want to say to all of us, wherever we come from, promise me you'll always remember you're braver than you believe and stronger than you seem and smarter than you think. And I think it's the purpose of higher education in any world, but in particular in the post-pandemic world, to search for meaning and value and provide those things to our students, in addition to anything we do as it relates to what is called content education. So moving forward, and let's hope I can move forward. This is going to be a challenge. Let me see if I can get myself to move. I may have to do it this way. All right. So I'd like to sort of step back in time, even before maybe 50, 60 years ago, and since the post-independence India and the rights movement in the United States, where a young reverend who was following Gandhi, Mahatma Karamchand Gandhi, but didn't really know him, spoke about the value of education. Dr. Kalam is a renowned scientist and led India. And he speaks that the purpose of education is to make good human beings with skill and expertise. Enlightened human beings can be created by teachers. The Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about this slightly differently. The function of education, therefore, is to teach one to think intensively and to think critically. But education which stops with efficiency may prove to be the greatest menace to society. The most dangerous criminal may be the man gifted with reason, but with no morals. And it's something that echoes what Albert Einstein said as he was developing some incredible power in the world. We must remember that intelligence is not enough. It's intelligence plus character. That is the true goal of education. The complete education gives not only the power of concentration, but worthy objectives upon which to concentrate. The broader education will therefore transmit to one not only the accumulative knowledge of the race, but also the accumulated experience of social living. If we are not careful, our colleges will produce a group of close-minded, unscientific, illogical propagandists consumed with immoral acts. Be careful, brethren, be careful, teachers. And I'm going to come back to that as I close out. So much has been said that I'll be able to go through my slides fairly quickly. I'd like to talk about where I come from in the stream of consciousness. I serve at the largest university, four-year university system in the US. We have very few doctoral programs, quite a few master's programs in three capacities. The first is I'm a faculty member at one of the 23 universities, the California State University, Dominguez Hills. We have what we politely call the most opportunity to take our students ahead. You see, as my second role is I serve as an elected senator to the 23 universities representing the faculty of the universities across the 500,000 students and roughly 30,000 faculty and about 28,000 staff, 25,000 staff, non-faculty staff. Importantly, 60 to 70% of our faculty are part-time contingent, means that they don't have full-time employment, they're precarious, though we have good contracts, they're precarious, very much like the Uber or gig economy. And my third role is I serve in about 110-year-old organization, 106-year-old organization called the American Association of University Professors. It's one of two international organizations now that were founded in the 1914, 1915 timeframe, where we spend our time, well, they developed, and we are spending our time posturing for, nudging for, negotiating for the power of faculty as the main conduit of learning and not that of our administrators or our management. Moving from there, I want to just quickly take you to some images of my campus. This is, the typical Zoom background, but it's an outdoor space on my campus. A second outdoor space, which These photographs are not taken by me. They're taken by university photographers. And this photographer this photograph I like very much because it shows light, filtered light coming through our trees on a campus, which is one of the last green areas in a large city. So in a large metropolitan area. So moving from that, I'd like to then talk about the light. This is the light we started off with in about March last year. I didn't have a name to it, but unlike about 100 years ago, actually 102 at that time, it was a potent and virulent disease. Until 2020, the mother of all pandemics, but please bear with me because I'm taking you back in time before I take you forward, was the Spanish flu. It spread quickly and it killed, I think, about 500,000 people and a large percentage of the world population. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. The difference between the mother of all pandemics and COVID-19 pandemic is we now know what a virus is and what it looks like. We know its chemical composition and its physical composition. But what is similar, and this is what I'd like to focus on, is that as then this pandemic began with no solution, no cure, no vaccination. More importantly, I've got some images here from the CDC, the Centers for Disease Control on the left, and the Public Health Matters division of that. On the left, you see a makeshift hospital in 1918 in Iowa, a state in the United States. On the right, you see a photograph, courtesy Getty Images, of a makeshift hospital in the largest park in one of the largest, most famous parks. Simon and Garfunkel performed there in New York, called Central Park. 100 years later, same situation. Look at the employment requirements. Be a nurse, learn at home. 100 years in the past, and today, health professionals, California needs you. And of course, the nation was also calling for the same. More images. You can see here is in mask making in October 1918. I can't tell if they're women or men, but you can see that they're wearing masks and they're making masks, and you see much the same in 2020. I've taken these images from BBC.com and India. So of course, our students are engaged in many of these activities. If we are a good university, our students are churning out 3D masks, 3D face protections, and they are getting involved in the problem solving of society. Moving forward a little bit, here, the beginning of the pandemic, not much different now, from various federal agencies in the United States. Stop the spread of germs. You will see these are non-pharmaceutical interventions. There was nothing else to help, except if you got secondary infections, you could be treated with antibiotics and steroids, but there was nothing to tackle the virus except humans themselves, and humans' common sense, which is not so common, as you can tell from the raging disease all over the world, but particularly in major metro areas like Bombay, Mumbai, and the National Capital Region of India, but also across the United States and California, where I reside. Here's some images. The one on the left is from a student collected by us in a special activity. I'll bring that research to you next year or sometime in a special talk. So I'm just sharing an image. We're talking a lot about the pandemic as the problem. And of course, this student does a photograph. It's a piece of multimedia art. She's Latina, which means she speaks Spanish, and she's from an immigrant from Mexico. And she, of course, idolizes the profession of nursing and her sister for being out there on the front lines for COVID. On the right, you see an image of an artist at Venice Beach, a pretty famous beach for its craziness in California. Two people kissing through their masks, just not allowed, even with the masks, right? So the need for human contact hasn't gone away. But it's not just COVID-19. It's not just the SARS-CoV-2 virus and its variants. It is the perfect storm worldwide, and particularly in the United States, of health wellness, social justice from amazing racial tensions. And I'm going to name the most prominent at this moment, which is the murder of George Floyd by a police officer in the open square by strangulation, putting his body weight on him. But it's all races across the world, immigrants versus native populations or prior immigrants, political, social, and economic, financial, all coming together. And my people who came before me, particularly Alexander, talked about the economic, financial, not just as a national crisis, but a particular crisis for universities. How do we continue to do the work we do for our students, and not just our students as members of the communities that they live in and occupy? Another piece of art from a student, it's a photograph taken at the Hard Rock Cafe in the Beverly Hills area, right after George Floyd was murdered. And you can see here the images of the fist, which are, powerful images of resistance that this student has put together and then presented as one of his sharing for what's going on in the pandemic. So that's the background within which universities are functioning. Theoretically or conceptually, some higher education experts, and this is actually a colleague of mine in a California university whose work is now famous for taking some simple ideas and formalizing them and then testing them across universities in the US. And it's called the Thriving Quotient. She started with students. We are now doing that work with faculty and staff and administrators or management as well. But to thrive at a university or college, you need to have academic thriving, interpersonal thriving, and intrapersonal thriving. And the first speaker spoke about this. It's not just a place to study. It's a place to make friends, to hang out, to have a cup of coffee, maybe smoke some weed, do some things that your parents wouldn't allow you when you were at home. Grow up. So academic thriving consists of engaged learning and academic determination. Interpersonal thriving consists of sense of community as well as diverse citizenship. And interpersonal thriving is a positive perspective, someone who can say at all times, my glass is half full, or I'm grateful for this pandemic because it's made me realize how much I am capable of doing and how much I have. So all three elements are important for thriving. And I believe it is the role of a college or a university or a school, or from kindergarten, nursery, all the way up, or a family, to serve as educational partners for our newborns and all the way through to our doctoral students, to ensure that they thrive as whole human beings while they're learning specific content and specific tools. So how might we do that? I'm going to take you to a piece written by Nancy Zimpher, who's a senior fellow at the National Association of System Heads. California State University system on the West Coast and the State University system of New York on the East Coast are the two largest university systems in the United States of America. Collectively, everyone else, public and private, looks to us for what we are doing to try and figure out what they should do. And one more thing that's important that ties to Alexander's talk is in the US, education is a state mandate. We are regulated by state law and protected by state law. We are also regulated by certain higher education, federal law, if we accept federal money, and most public universities and most private universities also accept federal money, either in grants or scholarships, aid, financial aid. So we're governed by both sets of laws. So one other thing, as a result of the work of the AAUP and as a result in California of our laws, three bodies, the Board of Trustees representing administration and faculty represented by our academic senates, and then of course our managers, our management, must work together in the business or the practice of shared governance, where we get together to think about what are the best ways of teaching our students, online, hybrid, in the most current context, technology intensive, or good old let's mail the things or email the things, asynchronously get them back. Web 2.0, Web 3.0, or some other mechanism. But it's the job of the faculty to drive that and administration to support that work. And this has been a huge struggle during the pandemic, because how do we get faculty together when they're so involved in pivoting to new forms of education that historically only a small subset of faculty and a very small subset of universities, typically the private for-profit universities, are any good at or have any practice at. So for public universities, which account for the bulk of the education, this is the challenge moving forward. So I'm going to quote from an essay written for Inside Higher Education in March of last year by Nancy Zimpher. And she talks about the work of leadership and I'm going to extend this with my privilege of a speaker to all of us as leaders, not just faculty and administrations and managers. Obviously, administration and managers and government sometimes is paid way more than faculty, so they have a little more power. They also control our budgets. Faculty does not control the budget. So we can bang our head against the wall, but we have to persuade our managers for them to actually support what we suggest is a good idea. So data works, support for ideas works. So she quotes the work of leadership from a 1997 Harvard Business Review article. And many of you as MBA students will know the Harvard Business Review as a wonderful place to go when you're researching big ideas packaged away from academic research for managers and the lay reader. So she says the main thesis of the work of these two authors is that leading an organization through major changes, crisis or not, and we are of course in a huge crisis and an extended crisis, which as you notice is nowhere near ending, requires its leader, I would say leaders, each and all of us coming from the students, and we must give them voice because academic freedom, the freedom to learn, is as important as the freedom to teach. And the voice of the student is equally important because the job of education is to help us collectively solve community problems, the big problems and the small problems, the big challenges and the small challenges of our communities. So that requires its leaders to view its patterns as if they were standing on the balcony. As they note, leaders have to see a context for change or create one, elevating an organization's history and what's good about the past, as well as taking responsibility for shaping the future. Perhaps the best way to summarize such an effort is to underscore, and I'm almost done, underscore the significance of this opportunity. Both the speakers before me have spoken about the pandemic as a huge opportunity for all of us, including education, to seize for change. In the context of education in the United States, the big rethink is the first major re-examination of public university systems since Clark Kerr led the Carnegie Commission on Higher Education's foundational studies in the 1970s. And Clark Kerr was a California educator who was at the University of California, Berkeley for much of his tenure, but he did this word nationwide. Now, half a century later, and in the face of a global pandemic, and by the way, now we're 70 years later, not in 1997, but she's writing now in 2020. Now, half a century later, and in the face of a global pandemic, as we as public systems of higher education are called once again to show the way. Please think back to that picture that was the last photograph shared, the first photograph of a campus shared, I think by that first presenter, Mole. As are called upon once again to show the way. We must be creative, innovative, compelling, and willing to take risks in our collective work in this transformative moment. So rather than rehash what the others have said, I was hoping that that would come before me. I'd like to end with these two notes. The first is from a young 22-year-old woman, who lived, she was raised by a single mother in the city of Compton and in the area called Watts, a rather poor area. And when you drive in LA, when you come to that area, sometimes you wonder what happened. The roads suddenly get bad until you leave the city on the same road, very much like in India. If you're driving from one city to the other in areas that are not prime highways, the highway ends and then there's broken road and then there's a village or a town road, and you wonder what happened to the contracts. Why didn't they connect, right? So here's what she says. It's a beautiful poem. She's a powerful performer, and she's the first National Youth Laureate of the United States. Her name is Miss Amanda Gorman. I'm only going to quote one phrase to inspire us all collectively, faculty, administrators, students, our families, and our communities. When day comes, we step out of the shade, aflame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it, for there is always light. If only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it. And from there, I'd like to go back a few centuries to Rumi to say, I was dead, then alive, weeping, then laughing. The power of love came into me, and I became fierce like a lion, then tender like the evening star. And what I take this to mean for our universities is that we were heading into crisis, pandemic or not. The pandemic is the SARS-CoV-2 virus gift to us. It is a gift of the natural world to humans, asking us to accept our role in the world as just one living creature and to nurture that world and all its living creatures with respect, compassion, and the power vested in us from our educations and in our educations. I think we can turn to the Netherlands for an excellent example of living with nature, and Japan as well. And so in closing, I'd like to do what we couldn't do in the opening. We normally open our prayers with a Ganesh Puja, where Ganesh is a symbol. We ask him to remove all obstacles. Don't have the time to go into why, but I'll let all of you reflect back on your own spirituality and learning. And so we ask Ganesh to remove obstacles. And I would like to say, from a little jar handed to me on a plane or a hotel, I don't even remember where, maybe in Goa on holidays, when holidays were possible. Let's all work together, not just to spread a little knowledge, but to do what the Reverend Martin Luther King and what former President Dr. Kalam asked us to do, to spread compassion and a little joy so that we live and move forward towards a better world, as Dirk yesterday asked us to do. So thank you for your patience. I know we've gone about 6 minutes beyond, but hopefully we can call it a day. Thank you very much, Simsri, Rikan, and Rajesh Srivastava, Dr. Srivastava, for inviting me to join you.
Thank you, ma'am, for a grateful information on education field in California universities and also shedding the light on the COVID-19 is a perfect storm, which includes health and financial situation of the country. Now, we have scheduled all the presentation at 5 p.m. So it is now time to move towards the presentations round. Before, you will, all the participants will get the notification, and students should join their respective record rooms.
And the chairperson should also join accordingly, sir. It is our great honor, sir.
So,
Madam, also, thank you very much, Kirti ji.
As Dr. Malik, this is Prakash here. I had a question. I'll post it on your LinkedIn. No problem.
Okay.
It's about CX versus SX. I thought that was a very interesting thing that I've been thinking about.
Sure.
I'll send it to you. Thank you.
Yep, no problems. Thank you, everyone. And you have a great round of presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Molek.
Dr. Aishin and Dr. Sally, nice to connect with you.
Yes, and hopefully we stay connected, those of you that publish more than me. Very interesting publication record as well as your talk. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your university's experiences. I think it's going to take a lot of collective work to get us past this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Professor Srivastav, I'm going to sign off. Call it a night. Saturday.
Yeah. Thank you
9:30.
very much. I know it is a midnight in Australia. Thank you very much, sir, for
Yeah.
sparing your time and giving your valuable thought process and also chairing the session.
No problem.
And
This was-
Dr. Yasin and Kirti ji, you will be there. You will continue to chair the session. We are highly obliged.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Hello.
Record committee, please direct them to the right track.
Yes, sir. Yes, so we are doing that. Sandeep, sir, you will receive a notification. Just give me a minute.
Yeah.
So somebody can
So
tell
you
me,
have already received a notification.
Uh,
so someone can send me where
Ma'am, you must have received your notification.
Hello.
Yeah. Sandeep, you got
Yes,
the
sir.
Sir, so I've not received it here.
Okay, one second. I'll do it.
answer.
Did you get another one, sir?
Because I have to right now connect to my mobile, so just not getting it here.
Okay, one second. Sir, it's sir. Now, please check.
Okay. No, not able to see it.
Sneha, wait, I'll send it to you.
Okay, Dhananjay.
You have done?
KJ, he's joined in from
He'll
two
receive.
devices. So,
Okay.
so I
Kirti ma'am, you must have received a notification.
am just leaving. I'm hoping somebody can put the evaluation
Hello?
sheet in the chat.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll mail it to you.
Just put it in the chat, drag it into the chat if you are able to.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Sir,
you.
did you receive the
Director
notification?
Sangeeta Pandit to the track one.
Yes,
She
yes.
has gone. Sandeep sir, did you receive the
Ma'am, you
notification?
can accept the request.
Hello, Sandeep sir. Hello.
Did you resolve Sandeep Banot's problem?
Yes, sir. Yes, he went right.
Huh?
Yes, sir. उनको भेज दिया उनको.
Has he gone?
Yes, yes.
He's still visible here.
Hello, Sandeep sir.
Nick, I'm just leaving from this one.
Yeah. I
One
sent the
minute.
notification, yes.
No, but just send me on this one, on my other connection. This one here.
This one, the one that is there right now, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll send that. Sir, did you receive?
For BR3, no?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah, thanks.
You got it?
I'll
Please
join.
join immediately, Banotji. Who else is pending? Just check and then direct them. Sama Pandit, will you please join the marketing track?
Sir, the problem is that I don't know, they automatically connect to the marketing. That is not my problem. I'm looking only the what is going on now. That's why I'm looking.
You want to attend student section?
Okay, no problem.
No, you attend marketing section. You're a senior person.
So I don't know where to go link because they are
No,
not.
sir,
I will,
I have sent you the
Samar,
request.
I'll send
No, no,
you.
Sneha,
You
Sneha,
must have
Sneha,
gotten a
I have.
request.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay,
somebody
thank-
must have. Sir, you are on mute.
Okay, Janwal is in student section. Just
Yes,
take her
yes,
there.
sir. We have assigned it to him. He has gone. He has gone.
Amit, please join your respective breakout rooms.
Yes, one day should join student track.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Arun Nawa has come. Please take him to marketing track.
Yes, sir.
Arun Nawa Mukherjee has come. Please take him to marketing
Yes, sir.
track.
We have assigned it to him. Sir, we have assigned. हेलो सर एक्चुअली वो मौलिक सर अपना इवैल्यूएशन शीट नहीं देके गए हैं।
कौन?
मौलिक सर।
अच्छा, मैं मैसेज करता हूँ
उनको आपने रिमाइंडर दिया था 2-3 बार बट वो शायद देना भूल गए।
मैं भी मैसेज करता हूँ। ये यसीन सर, यसीन का मैसेज आया।
हाँ सर, आई
He's
थिंक उन्होंने
waiting for him to be taken to the student track. He's chairing the session. No?
Okay, I think he is not there in the meeting right now.
But he wants. भेज
Okay,
दो
okay.
उसमें क्या फर्क पड़ता है? हाँ?
Okay, okay. Yes sir.
He's ready to chair, so करने दो ना। मिले वो आपको?
Yes sir, वो स्टूडेंट ब्रेकआउट रूम में ही है। Yes sir, yes sir, वो स्टूडेंट ब्रेकआउट रूम में ही है। वो स्टूडेंट ब्रेकआउट रूम में ही है। हाँ, नहीं सर, उनको स्टूडेंट नहीं सर, उनको मैंने स्टूडेंट ब्रेकआउट रूम में ऐड कर दिया। हेलो
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
मैं वो
संदीप भानोट
यासीन,
sir. हाँ
हाँ,
सर. क्या क्या
यासीन
याशीन?
को स्टूडेंट ट्रैक में भेज दो ना, यासीन
सर
यूनिवर्सिटी
सर वो स्टूडेंट ट्रैक नहीं है।
उधर ही है सर. हाँ. सर
भानोट
सुनिए
जी
ना,
को,
संदीप भानोट जी अभी मार्केटिंग ट्रैक में है, बट उनका ऑलरेडी चेयरिंग डिसाइडेड था स्टूडेंट ट्रैक 3 में, तो उनके लिए वहां रुके हुए हैं. और यहाँ पे अरुणवा है, अयंगर सर भी आ गए और संगीता मैम भी है, तो भानोट सर को वहां पे.
भानोट को भेज दो फिर स्टूडेंट
हाँ तो आप फोन पे बात कर लीजिए ना, वरना वो कंफ्यूज हो जाएंगे.
को।
हम भेज देते हैं, पर आप बात कर
हाँ,
लीजिए.
ठीक है।
केजे यू डूइंग इट.
और यस यस, कौन सा रूम में भेजना?
अभी वो ब्रेकआउट रूम 1 में, उनको स्टूडेंट ट्रैक 2 ब्रेकआउट रूम 3 में डालना है.
Should I tell Bhanot to go now? Udar, so Srinivasan has come back
Yes, sir. Srinivasan has come back. Arunava is also here.
and Sangeeta Pandit is
Sangeeta
also
ma'am
there.
is also there.
Okay. तो मैं भानोट को मैसेज करता हूँ.
हाँ बोल दो कि आपको जहाँ जो अलॉट किया है वहां चले जाओ, अब नोटिफिकेशन एक्सेप्ट कर लो.
वो चले गए हैं, आप उसे उनको कॉल कर लो।
चले गए वो?
यस सर।
Bhanot has left
यस यस यस
and joined the student track?
यस यस यस।
Oh, very good. Very good. मौलिक का मैं भेज रहा हूँ मैडम.
हाँ सर.
वो आ गया उनका ईमेल से, मैं आपको भेज देता हूँ. और even that South African fellow has also sent.
Okay.
Person, South African professor.
Chetna, do you remember if somebody named Sonali Pawar has entered yet?
No, I guess.
Nahin, na, theek hai. If she comes, directly put her in the general management, first one.
Okay, take care.
He's having COVID, huh?
Sir, तो वो नहीं आने वाले हैं क्या?
I'll just check.
Yeah, sir, please check because अगर नहीं है तो हम next line up कर देते हैं.
आप line up कर दीजिए उसको बाद में मैं phone करके देखिए. Should I tell them that you will be presenting the paper? Yeah. So you will be joining right now, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. She'll be there.
Yes, I'll convey it to Sneha.
Please convey, and then she is just about to join, she said.
ठीक है sir. So she is here, Sonali Pawar. I'm directing her to breakout room.
Direct them to the.
Okay, I'll wait.
Sorry, Sonali, so right now Professor Emmanuel is going to present, and then Sonali can present. You directed her, क्या?
No, I didn't.
वो छोड़ के चले गए शायद.
Yeah, probably.
कौन?
Sonali. No, she's in the breakout room. It's okay. I'll talk to her.
All right. Okay.
YouTube पे live है क्या चेतना?
Yes, sir. Breakout room 1 का YouTube पे चल रहा है.
Live है अच्छा.